So we'll just get started. Hello everyone, welcome to our first webinar Wednesday of the school year 2024-25. My name is Kirsty Stephen and I am an assistive technology and additional support needs teacher here at Call Scotland. I'm delighted to be joined this afternoon by Trevor Nichols from EaseeDo. So good afternoon, Trevor.
Hi, good afternoon.
Trevor's going to be presenting his EaseeDo app that he has been developing. It provides visual timetables and guides and also an opportunity for emotion tracking. Trevor is a parent of 3 autistic girls and he saw firsthand how changes in routine could be upsetting, confusing and at times quite overwhelming. So we're looking forward to hearing all about this supportive app. I know that we've got people joining us from all over Scotland today and further afield, so that's great. And the session today will be recorded. My colleague Robert is in the background. He's keeping an eye on things, so thanks for that, Robert. And the recording link will be following today's webinar via email. So please ensure during the webinar that your mics remain muted, and if you don't want to be in the recording, then I would ask that you please pop off your camera now. The webinar is going to run for 20 minutes approximately, and then there'll be an opportunity for you to ask Trevor some questions, but please feel free to pop those in the chat pane as we go and I'll facilitate those at the end. So I will hand over to Trevor. Thanks, Trevor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kirsty, for the introduction. And I just wanted to start by giving a little bit of an introduction myself. So Kirsty's covered a lot of that. Well, thank you for joining this today, and thanks to Call Scotland for having me along. As you just heard, so my wife and I, we have 3 girls and they are all diagnosed with autism. We also have some dual diagnosis of ADHD and PDA as well. Our journey has been with this software has been about 10 years in the making so far. So my girls are young adults now, and a couple have already left home. But back when we first received their diagnosis and we were learning a lot about neurodiversity and the challenges that they were facing, one of the things that really struck us was that visual timetables was really important and really effective. So the software, as you'll see when I run through it in a minute, covers sort of like the 4 main things that we were using as physical things in our household. So visual schedules is one. We relied on those quite heavily. We had loads of I suppose you would call them visual task cards up around the house, which were laminated sheets. We used sticker charts. I know they don't work for everybody, but for our girls, positive reinforcement was a really good thing. And we also had a stress thermometer where they could indicate how they were feeling throughout the day, and we would be able to check on that and see what sort of state of mind they might be in. So those 4 things are what we included in the software. So I'm just going to move my screen around a little bit and share my screen. And you should now be able to see my website logged in. So the software platform itself is designed really around our scenario, so a parent supporting their children, but it does go further than that now. The scenario that I'm showing you at the moment is exactly that. So what you're looking at right now is the timeline page of the website, and I'm going to go through the various different sections. But just to explain the scenario a little bit, we're looking at a John Smith is signed in here, and he's looking after 2 children in his care. So you can see we've got Leo and Max. And on the timeline page, we're looking at Leo's timeline here, and we're looking at Max's timeline here. Now, these are demo accounts, so some of them are quite sparsely populated, and I've just set this up earlier today so I can run through it with you. What I'm going to cover today, I'm going to go through the timeline page a little bit and how that works. I'm going to talk about resources, which is another section. Goals, I'm not really going to cover very much, but that's just a digital equivalent of our sticker charts that we had on the fridge. I'm going to talk about graphics a little bit because they play quite a heavy part in the entire software, and connections as well. If time, I'll just touch on communities at the end. So if I go back to the timeline now, and please speak up if it's not clear or you can't see the screen very well, I'll try and adjust it. What we're looking at here is the two children in the care, and mostly we'll focus on Leo for this demonstration. But you can see that on the timeline we have a layered system. We have changes and we have routine, which is something you don't normally see in a calendar. And we came up with this as a way of mostly as a visual representation to change to routine. So one of the things we really struggled with the visual timetables was that you create the visual timetable, but then life would get in the way and you'd have to change something, and that caused a lot of disruption and a lot of anxiety. So in an attempt to make a visual representation, we came up with these layers. So if I just make this screen a little bit smaller now, you can see that I do also have a couple of mobile phones running, and they're presented on the screen as well. So this phone that you can see on the left now, this is Leo's view of the timeline. So it's important to remember that through the website, which is where things get updated by the parent, that's the management side of things at the moment, and the app is really a read-only view into the information for the child or the end user to use. So on the phone at the moment, we're looking at a now, next and later view of the timeline that we can see in the management side of things. So we've just gone 4 o'clock, so you can see that we're in the middle of the bus ride home here. And then after that, we've got some free time before dinner. And then on this particular example, we've got a movie night after that. I was talking about the use of layers to represent change. So if I wanted now to represent a change on Leo's timeline, I'd click and drag an area where we're going to do something different. And so say, in this example, we have a doctor's appointment, and I put that in. You can see the phone refreshes immediately, and now we see that we have a doctor's appointment in the current time slot, and we have an icon here to represent that it's a change. So if Leo wanted to have a bit more detail about that, he can then take a miniature view of the timeline on his phone, and he can see the layers, and he can see that the doctor's appointment is on the changes layer and that it supersedes the things that are below it. That's we'll come on to how that plays with other things in the layers later on as well. So that's just a quick example of how we use the layers to represent change to routine. On his phone, he can then step through and see the different activities that he's got going on. And I've only set up the one day, so there's not that many in there. Go back to the normal now, next and later view now. I'm just going to remove this doctor's appointment so we can see the bus ride home again, and then that'll take us neatly onto the resources. So I talked about the cards that we had up around the house to represent different activities. And so we've represented that in the software in 2 ways. If I go to the resources page now, if I was to create a new one, I would click here, and you can see we have the option of using a guide or a checklist. So those are 2 types that we've got at the moment. We've got plans to expand that further in the future. But right now, so I'm going to show you an example of a guide. And on the website, it's going to look a little bit complicated because you can see that it's this like a decision tree or a flow diagram, however you want to describe it. And that's how the parent would see it and how they would create it. But it's a lot more simplified for the child. And this particular one is about catching the bus. So it is connected to the activity on the timeline now. The bus home, and we can see this little icon on the phone that tells us there's an activity there with a connection. So we click that and we get the same information, but we get it in a broken down format. So it's 1 step at a time. So they get the graphics to go with it. So you can see first thing they need to do is go to the bus stop. This is a very simplified example, but you can make these as complicated or as simple as you need them to be. So it says, are your friends waiting there as well? So he could say yes. They are, so the instruction is to wait with them, and then you've got 2 options. So the bus could arrive, in which case get on the bus, you're done. Or if we were to restart this and look at a different alternative, they could say, are your friends there? No. Okay, so give it 5 minutes. If something happens, your friends have arrived, great, wait with them. And then maybe the bus is cancelled, so the friends will go home with the parent, and the instruction is then to give mum or dad a call. And these are entirely customizable, and the graphics that you put inside them are customizable as well. And you would set this up for the needs of the individual that was using the software. So that's how the guides work. And then very quickly, I will show you a checklist. As you can probably imagine, a checklist is much more simple than a guide. And if we take this one here, for example, this would just be the items that you would want to pack in a school bag. The checklist is created on the website as before, and this time on the phone, because it's not connected directly to an activity that's currently on the now, next and later, I can go into the resources list and I can see that we've got school bag there. So I'm going to select that one and we can go through and we can tick off the items as we go. If we needed to come out of that and do something else and then go back into it, you're presented with a choice of whether you want to restart or resume. And sorry, just bear with me, my screen's gone blank for a second. And we're back. So I'm going to resume and I get to see the ones that we've already completed, and then we can carry on and complete the others. Okay. As I said, goals, I won't go too much into detail about this. This is just a digital equivalent of a sticker chart, but it does show that you can add a goal and it appears on the phone. So the phone app has two formats. So I've got two phones connected to my computer at the moment. One is Leo's, but the other is John, the parents. And you can see that the layout of the phone is different for parents. It's the same app, but depending on how you sign in and what your account is set up for, will depend on what you see. So here we've got the two children in the care. So if I go into Leo now, first thing I can see is a list of all the activities Leo is doing. And also on actions, I do have the opportunity to send a point from my phone for that homework chart as well. I'll come back to the parents app in a little bit when we talk about feelings and emotion tracking. Okay, let me just see where we are. Great. So another really important part of this, I speed up a little bit because I'm running out of time, are graphics. So everything in the system is based around having graphical representation if you need it to. You don't have to, but it's the options there. So in this graphics page that we're looking at the moment, this is John's personal graphics library that he's created. We do have a built-in graphics library, and at the moment it's growing, but it doesn't cover nearly every eventuality. So we've given the choice to be able to use that graphics library or to upload your own graphics. And quite often we find that a photo of the real item is what's required rather than a cartoon illustration of that. So giving the option to have your own graphics is also an advantage. There's several ways you can add graphics into the system. You can choose to upload a file from your computer. So if I was to choose upload file, and I can find a graphic. Give it a name. And that will upload into my graphics library, and then I can use that when I'm creating a new item. So if I was going to create an item here to say feed the ducks, then that graphic I've just uploaded is available to use, and it's as simple as that. So we try to make it really, really quick and easy to create new routines and guides, etc. There are other ways to upload graphics. You can use not just from your computer, but you can use the app to take pictures with your phone. They go automatically into your graphics library. You can use those, or you can just click and drag images from other websites. There's a variety of royalty-free websites that you can use and just drag them over into your account, and they're available to use. Okay, excellent. So I'll just, in the last 5 minutes, cover how some emotion tracking works. And in order to do that, by default, you can see that there's no emotion tracking switched on at the moment. If I go back to the timeline and I click this button up here, we get an extra layer above our activity layers. And this is where the information about emotion tracking will go. If I go and just jump into Leo's account for a moment, because we're going to switch it on for Leo, go to settings and tracking, we can see we've got an empty screen, nothing is switched on. If I just toggle this switch initially, and immediately you'll see there on the phone that we get this icon now has appeared, and we can click that and we can select a level from this scale, thumbs up, thumbs down. And then when we refresh the timeline page, we see that has appeared as this line is a continuation from the last time this was tracked, and it's near the top because it was a high level emotion. But that's in its most simple form, where we just have thumbs up, thumbs down, and then we can start to make it more customized after that. If we go back to tracking again, and this time I can start adding in other emotions that we might want to indicate are relevant for that particular entry. So I'll just put a couple in for now. And this time, if I go back to the phone and I click that, I still get the thumbs up to thumbs down, but this time I might select a negative one, and then it's followed by the emotions that we've put in, and we choose the appropriate one. When we go back to the timeline again, we get to see that extra bit of information with the icon there. It's not just on the timeline. We do see that information come through to the parent's phone as well. So if I just come back out, give that a refresh. So now we can see that I've logged 2 emotions in the last few minutes. So we get those indicated here, and we can also go in to the detail as well, and we can look at the feelings detail, and we can see those 2 emotions here. We're looking at it in a day view, and if I select the emotions icons at the bottom, we can see that one of them was an anger emotion, and we can see where it resides on the chart here. As you use this more and it builds up more and more data, then you can look back over week views and months views, and you start to see patterns emerging, and then you can cross-reference those patterns with the timeline activities, and it should help to pinpoint activities that are causing the most amount of stress. Okay, so how's that time? Okay, good. So you can see that it's quite customizable. The other thing that you can do here is that we can add something called pins. So if I go back to settings again for the tracking, it's a different type of tracking, and these are for observable events. So I'm just going to call it new event and save this. Now we have this pin icon on Leo's phone, and I can select that, click the new event, and that will place a pin on the timeline, and we can see that there. The difference with pins and emotions is that because they're observable, we also give that option of recording those events to the parents as well. It didn't refresh. Let me see if I can just get that to refresh. Okay, so now we have that event there. So as a parent, you could see that this thing is happening, whatever it is you're choosing to track. So you could just hit that button on your own phone, and then it puts a pin at that point in time on the timeline, so you can go back later and you can see where all those events occur, and hopefully get some insight from that as to what's going on the timeline. Okay, great. So just going to very, very quickly touch on communities and connections. So we've been talking about this family scenario where we've got the parent looking after their children. So in connections here, you can see this is where the connections are made to the children. This shield icon tells you that they are supervised connections. Because we're dealing with children here, the parent has the ability, as you've seen already, to jump into their accounts, take full control over it. And it's designed to be customizable for different ages as well. So Leo would potentially be quite a young child. So if we look at his permissions, his account's very locked down. He hasn't got permission to do pretty much anything in the system except access the information on his phone. But if conversely I was to look at Max, who might be an older child, he's got more autonomy. He can do a lot of the things in the system himself, and he's got all these permissions enabled, so he can go in, manage his own account, connect with other people. So if he wanted to connect with his teachers or his therapist and occupational therapist, anybody he's working with, then they can also connect, and then you choose what information, what data you want to share. Communities is a new part of the system, which is still in its infancy, but we're starting to think about how schools can use it, how different groups can use it. So in this little example here, you can see that we've got a Scout group here. If I just bring up another web browser very quickly, this is logged in as another user. So you can see that they don't have a personal timeline, but in communities, they are running this community for a small Scout group, and they do have a timeline in there. So in this scenario, the timeline belongs to the Scout group. So he's started to create this layer for sort of crafting activities. And if we go back now to Leo's timeline and we choose the layers icon, we can see that because he's a member of that Scout group, we can add that in. So now, if I just put it in the correct position in its stack of layers, we'll see the timeline is updated on his phone, and then later on, after some free time, he's got pitching tents, and then he's going to have camp cooking and map reading. So the layers work in this top-down fashion, and you could then split out the who has control of each layer. So in this instance, it's a scout leader. They can create a layer, and then you can bring that in so Leo can see what's going on at scouts, but he only has access to that. He doesn't have access to his daily routine. So I can see that the 20 minutes is up. I've just about covered everything I wanted to cover. It's a little bit rushed, but hopefully that's a good indication. And some questions. Let me put that back to the holding screen.
That was great, Trevor.
There we go.
That was a
Okay.
a really full picture of what you have developed. It's you can see, you know, I can see just how supportive that could be, you know, from younger right through to those who can cope with and manage a bit more of, you know, of their own environment. So yeah, just brilliant. Somebody is asking there, or saying, what a great app, and is it available on Android? And
Yes,
is it
it
only
is,
available in the UK?
So at the moment we've released it. So we're in the Channel Islands, so it's available here, but also in the UK. That's the limit of the availability for now, but we do have plans to release it further as soon as we can. Yeah.
Great. Somebody asking.
And it is available. Sorry,
yeah,
it is available on Android and iOS app stores as well. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's somebody else has just asked about. They missed they were a wee bit late in joining, but they just wondered if they missed you sharing. Was it available on iPad for, you know, for children who didn't have phones, maybe?
Yeah. So it's available on 3 app stores. So the Google Play Store for all Android devices, iOS, and it works on iPhone and iPads, and also it's available on the Amazon App Store because they're Kindle Fire tablets, which are a very cost-effective tablet. It will run on those as well. So yeah,
I think that you know, the multi-platform is, you know, that's brilliant. You've really given a lot of thought around that as well. I think one of the other things that I really liked was being able to upload the graphics, you know, add your own graphics in. Some learners maybe, I suppose, used to one type of graphic, but you know, we quite often have learners who are, you know, with specific symbol creation software, whether it's, you know, there's 2 or 3 different main ones. So, you know, but being able to upload photos really easily as well. So lots of kudos. Let me just, somebody asking if it's available in Ireland.
I would have to check that. I don't know whether probably Northern Ireland would be included in the UK. I'd have to check the rest of Ireland. It might be something I need to switch on. I'm very happy to do that actually. So I'll make a note to check that and enable that.
Somebody asking if it's accessed via subscription or if it's free or how that works.
Yeah, good question. So it is a subscription service, but we've tried to make it, one of our things was to make it as affordable as possible. So in terms of our model, we don't do a freemium where we give a little bit for a small amount and then ramp it up. What we've decided to do is make it that there's a subscription is only required for the number of people receiving support. So if one child in the family needed support, that would be one subscription, and that would be around £10 a month. So we're also aiming to be cheaper than Netflix for a household. For support accounts, so parents, teachers, occupational therapists, anybody that's just providing support, there's no charge for those accounts. You can create those, connect them to the individual that's getting the support, and build a team around the individual.
Yeah, that's a really supportive thing, that the child's at the centre there. Fabulous resource, simple to use, practical. Somebody's saying they can see lots of applications for it to enable many others to master moving through confusing worlds. Yeah, we absolutely. Available in the US, somebody's asking.
At the moment, no. We do want to make it available in the US. Obviously, the US is a massive market and we want to reach them too. that's an insurance thing for now, but we are working on that.
Great. Somebody's asking, yeah, sorry, just catching up. Yes,
Yes.
lots of schools saying that they can see multi-uses for it. Yeah, absolutely. And somebody asking, yes, absolutely, there will be a recording. We record all the webinars and they will be sent out to the email addresses that were registered before we started this afternoon. Somebody asking, is it possible to have trial logins? I know we spoke about this.
Yeah, and actually that's a really good question. I can see it's popped up, and it's a slightly different angle on the question that I'd considered in the past. So yes, everybody does have a month to use it before we want any payment for it, even the subscription accounts. But I think that question is slightly different. So it's from the point of view of a therapist who wants to have a long running trial to demonstrate it. And that's a scenario I've never really thought about before, but it's a really good one. So reach out to me on that one and I will give it a thought how we could implement that, because it's a great idea. Yeah.
Do you want to just pop your contact details, Trevor, in to the chat?
Yeah, absolutely. What I'll do,
Please.
so
I've popped the website on. I did put that
you
in
have,
already.
right. So anything at EaseeDo.app will reach me, but best just to say Trevor at EaseeDo.app. I'll just type it in now. Okay, so that's my email address, and I'll get those directly, but you can also come through to support or info at, and I'll get those as well. Yeah, and anybody can reach out through email or the website itself, social media. We've got all our links on the website too.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I think it's very clear that this is something that you have developed through first-hand experience. I think that really comes across, and just really understanding needs and how to meet them. So I think that seems to be all the questions covered, and an absolutely brilliant webinar to get us started for this session. So I really thank you very much, Trevor, for joining us.
Well,
And
thank you for having me.
It seems like you, lots. I think there'll be a few extra followers now, and we hope that it continues to grow. Yeah,
super.
Somebody's saying they are a great app and they definitely want to try it out with their own son. So we'd be really keen to hear from people as well, on follow up from that, so keep in touch with us too.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon. We'll be back next Wednesday. We're on looking at game development next week. So thanks very much to Trevor for presenting today. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks everyone.